Okay, so now we're going to deal with the sound tutorial. I was going to try and do the two together along with the interview technique tutorial, but I think I'll keep them separate. There's a lot to talk about in both, and I don't want to make one tutorial too long and bore you to tears too quickly. Now we're going to talk about sound techniques with microphones, devices. What devices do you have? Do you have one device, two devices? Do you have a microphone? If not, how to work around that. And also how important it is, because I think I might have mentioned before how important sound is. How important it is to have a different source of sound, so if there's a problem with the camera sound, you still haven't lost anything in an interview, or if you're outside filming, or you may only have one chance to capture that. So it's to make sure that you have all of the relevant information that you want available to you. So we're going to use the interview between Dave and John that I showed you earlier. We'll use that in various tutorials to go through the do's and don'ts, the good techniques, the bad techniques, things to watch for, things to be aware of. So once we've covered this little section, I will cut away and I'll show you the device that I use, and your device is obviously going to be different, but you should be similar, and I'll explain why we're doing that. Now we're going to touch briefly here on sound quality. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to flick between the camera sound and the microphone sound, so that you can hear the difference between the two, and you can see why it's important to have the two different ones. Especially if you're outside. If you're filming outside, there's things to consider, not only the light, but the direction of the wind. For instance, if you're filming for instance in Reykjavik with the garden, it's more than likely you will have a slight breeze. Always try and think about, maybe do a quick test with someone else before you do the interview, standing in front and chatting, and hear what you're actually hearing. Always a good idea to do a little take just before you do the main take. And don't be scared to keep the camera rolling while you cut and go to start again. Especially if you're interviewing someone, just explain to them that you're going to leave the camera rolling all the time while you're filming. Even if they make a mistake, not to panic, just start again and go through it. Because when you try and cut and start again, you try and get someone to say the same thing, it always sounds very stinted, like they're reading a script, and it sounds very flat like that. But if you catch it natural, first time, second time, third time, you will notice the difference. So just always keep the camera rolling, keep the audio going. If nothing else, it's good for outtakes at the end, if you want to make a funny video. So, outside, when you're filming outside, have the microphone here on the person, but have their back to the wind. That will protect the microphone from catching the breeze. For example, you can hear that quite loud, and it really does interfere with how the sound's being picked up by the device. Same with the camera. The camera sound isn't too important because of the distance if you have this. Even if you just have a phone or a device that doesn't have a microphone, usually they have 3 or 4 microphones embedded in them. So even if the person's just holding the telephone here or the device while they're talking and you're recording, you should get great quality sound if they're protected by the wind. If, for example, you can't have them back to the wind, even someone off shot holding a board, keeping the wind off, it's amazing the difference something simple like that can make to your sound. Now we'll move on to the actual devices, and the best way, as you can probably hear my dog barking in the background. Hopefully the camera would have picked that up, if not the microphone, so I can use that as well to demonstrate. Now we're going to talk about the devices, how the best way to set them up to get the best quality of sound, and then we will look at the interview and why it's important to have more than one source of sound. Okay, devices. Now, this is my iPhone 6. This is the one I'm using without an external mic, which I've been using up until now. You can hear the difference between, in the previous section, between the difference between the camera phone and the external mic used, the sound quality. So let's have a little look at this. In the iPhone 6 there's 3 microphones. There's one here on the base, which is just there next to the inputs. Oh, next to the inputs here. There's one on the top here next to the front facing camera, and there's one on the back here next to the rear facing camera. Now you're probably hearing all the bashing and banging going on, so let's open up my phone. Oh, as you can see, I'm still recording. Close that. So now let's go into setting up the device. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see better. We'll go to settings. It opens up the list of settings that you have normally. You go down to the program you're using to record the voice. So I'm using voice memo here. I'll open voice memo, and you'll have all the information that you're using. Let me bring it a little bit closer. Get the focus. What you're looking for is audio quality. You can open that and you can select between compressed or lossless. It might say uncompressed, it'll be various. You do not want to use compressed sound. You're better using uncompressed or lossless. I'll let that focus better. You see that okay? Now, the reason for that is because the more information you have, the more data you're saving, the better the quality of sound will be. So that's the device. Now you may have one device, you may have two devices. You can still use them very well without having actual external microphones. So the three microphones are great at picking up the sound, especially if you don't have an external mic. Like I was saying earlier, if they're holding it just in front of them with the wind to the back when you're outside, it will still catch a very good quality sound. Okay, so here is the microphone I use, just wired directly. This was fairly cheap off of Alibaba, $2 or $3. You see it has the standard 3.5mm jack. It plugs directly into the bottom of the phone here. Now, not every phone has nowadays the 3.5mm, 3.5mm jack plug. Most of them are relying on headphones that plug straight into here. You can buy an adapter online for that. That's a discussion to have with Ronald or Jamie, whether your device needs an adapter. But I really highly recommend getting an external microphone if you can. If not, like I've said before, the embedded microphones in the phone or the device work just as well, give you great quality sound. Not as good, but good enough. So have a discussion with Ronald about whether you need an adapter or whether you can plug directly into your phone. And we will then move on to the next section. Okay, now we're going to look at why it's important to have more than one source of sound. We're going to look at a little bit of an interview here between Dave and John. We'll spot the problem and then we'll see how it's fixable with the other pieces of sound. So, over to the good looking lads. Hi Dave, thanks very much for your time. I'm going to ask you a few questions here. First of all, what was your idea? Well, I wanted to give something back to the community, and as I come from I just thought of a community bakery.
So, as is always the case, the motorbike appears at completely the wrong time, totally drowns out Dave's answer, and you can't hear what he was trying to say. So now I'm going to dub over the video with the microphone sound and let you hear the difference between the two.
Hi Dave, thanks very much for your time. I'm going to ask you a few questions here. First of all, what was your idea?
Well, I wanted to give something back to the community, and as I come from a family of bakers, I just thought of a community bakery. So as you can see, having the external microphone really helped us out there with drowning out the motorbike passing, as the external microphone is designed to pick up the closest thing to it, which is Dave's voice. It did still capture a little bit of the motorbike, but not too much. and that's key to making sure we don't lose anything from the documentary. And that's why it's important to have more than one source of sound, because invariably the motorbike, a car, a truck, chickens, birds, someone drops something in the background, these things all seem to happen at the most important times of an interview, and there's nothing you can do if you've only got one piece of sound. You have to live with what you have. Remember, if you have any questions about sound, you can relay them to me through Ronald. He will get in touch and I will answer him via email. I think that's about it for what I wanted to cover on sound. We'll now move on to the next tutorial and take it from there.